Hey y'all, welcome back to Colored Couch Conversations, a podcast where I have intimate conversations with women of color on my couch. Today we will discuss sketch, sweet potatoes, and sex with my special guest. Y'all like those S's? uh, I'm your host, Jazmyn W., and my guest this week was raised in Dallas, Texas, like a couple of my guests, because y'all know I'm from Dallas. She's an established actress, writer, dancer, and I don't know how to say that word. She told me how to say this word beforehand.
Just say new.
She's a new podcaster, emerging podcaster. You've probably seen her in countless national commercials, and I do mean countless, and on TV and film, on TV shows like Scandal, Superstore, and most recently in the film Dolomite Is My Name. Such a great film. I love that film. She's always seeking challenging projects that showcase her agility, physicality, and creativity as a writer and actress. Give it up for Saudia Rashed.
Oh, I love the intro.
Yes.
Thank you
Yeah.
for having me.
Thank you. And one fun fact about Saudia, she my cousin.
Yeah, we related.
So, yes, I mean, and I think I've told Saudia this before, but maybe not. But, watching her move to LA and be an actress and everything, she totally inspired me. She may not even know that, but she inspired me to do the things that I'm doing. I would reach out to her and ask for advice. And, sometimes when you ask people for advice, even if they're your cousin, we didn't necessarily like grow up in proximity. They're short with you or whatever, but you always were so sweet and like willing to chat and just with anything. And even now it goes into motherhood because, I'll be asking you about your business. So I just love you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that makes me feel so good. Yeah, no, I remember when you were years ago when you would like send me Facebook messages about, you wanting to do stand up and, doing more on camera work. And I was like, yeah, I just try to, especially when I feel like it's people have a genuine connection to the field, like I really want to guide them in the right direction because it's so easy to go left and also
Yeah.
to get taken advantage of and to not know where to go. And so anytime someone asks me like, where do I get started? Like, I just want to make sure I point them in the right direction as much as possible.
Yes. Thank you. And that rubs off on me too, because when you do that for somebody, when somebody does that for you, you want to do it for other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you also have a podcast because it's called That One Blank Friend Podcast. Why did you start that? And tell me what it's about.
Okay. So that one blank friend is basically about the first season, which I just completed, starts with my friends, and hopefully it'll branch out to more friends and friends of friends, and I get to make more connections. But essentially the idea behind it is that getting more insight on the unique experiences that many of my friends have had and how they made them the person they are today, whether it's a unique career path, whether it's a diagnosis or a condition that they've had to deal with that has shaped how they've had to move in the world. So it's really from that perspective. And it started, interestingly enough, in November 2018. I had a good friend of mine, and she came over to visit, and she was telling me and my husband that she had voted for Trump.
Mm.
And I love the look on your face, Jazmyn. You're like, okay, let me see where this is going. She's a white woman, middle, I wouldn't say middle age, but like, in her 40s. She is very bohemian, like very feminist, very, I feel like just open. And when we both heard that, we were like, what? Why?
Yeah.
And just to, put you guys at ease, she totally regretted it.
Yeah.
And her explanation, interestingly enough, it came out of her relationship with her ex-husband because he was a big conspiracy theorist. And
Oh.
he was very much about Hillary is bad and the Clintons have done all this stuff. And, the Clintons are not, yeah, they're not, no one's perfect. But they're definitely, compared to Trump, more perfect than him. And so we were just like, really, like how her ex-husband's perspective had such a stronghold on her political views, and that
Yeah.
even though she had divorced him, it really guided how she voted, to the point that she remarried and her new husband is very liberal, and she didn't tell him. And she told us, and she was like, oh my God, please don't tell him, like, if you don't tell him
Yeah.
I voted. So I mean, she definitely learned her lesson. She said she learned it the night, but it was just interesting to me because, you ignored a lot of the signs. Like, you ignored his misogyny, you ignored grab him by the pussy, you ignored a lot of the blatant racism that's become even more blatant, over this overall idea that Hillary is bad.
Yeah.
So to me, it was a light bulb in me that was kind of like, I would have never guessed that you had done that. But if I don't know that about you, what else do I not know about my friends?
Mm.
So it really made me kind of want to know the people around me a little bit more, and just how they got into particular situations, or how their decisions, guided their life, and how other experiences around them guided their life. So yes, that's kind of how it started.
Wow. You know what? I am a huge conspiracy theorist myself.
Really?
I didn't vote for Trump. Don't get the wrong idea here.
Okay, good.
But I do think Hillary is terrible. I do think the Clintons are terrible. And I didn't while I did not vote for Trump, would never vote for Trump, and I cannot understand why anyone would vote for Trump. The people who voted for him the first time and have changed their mind, I'm gonna let you slide. I'm gonna let you slide.
Exactly.
But if you talk about defending him and voting for him again this time, you really trash. You are really trash.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And, agreed. Like the Clintons are, like I said, they're not heroes.
Right.
They did a lot of things, especially when Bill Clinton was office, that were not great, in terms of their ideals with the prison system. I mean, that's number one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think back, it was interesting growing up, because like how they were always referred to, or before Obama came along, how
Yes.
he was always referred to as the first Black president. And then when you see
Yes.
a lot of the decisions that they made, it was like, well, no.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, no, he wasn't. So yeah, I mean, they weren't great, but in that, in that race, we were just all picking the lesser of the two evils
Exactly.
at that point. And to me, it just shows that, the people who, like you said, voted for the first time around, and then hopefully they learn their lesson the second time around. I feel like those
Right.
people really voted without the idea of that they have the privilege to like make that vote and it not impact them the way that it did people of color.
Right. And guess what? It did impact them. And especially as a woman, it surely impacted her.
Oh,
You know?
surely.
Interesting. Well, listen, y'all, go listen to that One Blank Friend podcast. Subscribe to it, review it, rate it, just like I tell y'all to do mine. Okay, well, we always start this podcast off with a quote of the day. And you know this podcast because you chose it, Saudia. And it's, when Black women win victories, it is a boost for virtually every segment of society, by Angela Davis. What does this quote mean to you?
Well, I think in this particular time in the world, I think that quote really reflects all the political action for me that's going on. And what I mean is that as Black women in society, we are often the respected the least. Our opinions, just our worth, we tend to be viewed as a little bit more invisible than other cultures and identities. And I feel like when we take charge of that and we lead the charge, then other other aspects of society really improve.
Yeah.
And I mean, there have just been so many examples recently, like, for example, Black Lives Matter, that movement started with Black women. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Me Too started with, what's her name, Tarana Burke. All of these women started huge movements that have really been making us rethink how we view the world, how we view our society, how we view women in society,
Mm-hmm.
how we view Black women in society. So it's really, those particular movements are really forcing us to go inward and take a hard look at ourselves, and also take a hard look at the system at large and how we can
Yes.
change that. And that started
Yes.
with Black women. And it's interesting because being a mom now, I feel like in being in these mom groups, I'm really privy to like things that even breaking down barriers from, not breaking down barriers, but like breaking down misconceptions that I even put on myself. Like, for example,
Yeah, like what?
growing up and seeing in the media and them calling Black women the welfare queens and all that sort of stuff. And I'm in mom groups, and I tell you, they're 60% white women,
Mm-hmm.
and 80% of them are single moms,
Mm-hmm.
and also using federal subsidies. They're on welfare, they're using EBT, they need
Yeah.
unemployment just as everyone else. And there was this misconception that it's only Black people and brown people taking all of those resources. And it was really an eye-opener for me to be in these groups and be like, no, there's tons of white people taking advantage of this stuff too. And
Yes.
you know what? Rightfully so, because they're struggling as well.
Right.
And if as Black women, as if we stand up for those type of systems and support single moms and support getting more help and support support the educational system, then it helps those sector of women as well,
Right.
whether they like it or not. They're
Right.
affected. It raises their identity. It helps their stature in society. It helps them to survive even more and
Yeah.
raise their children better. So for me, that's what that quote means, that across the board, Black women are representative of the most invisible parts of society,
Mm-hmm.
because we are most impacted by those. And once we speak up for them, everything else is uplifted.
That is so, oh my gosh, that is such a word. It's so true. Sometimes, the more we talk about it too, and the more you explain every scenario, at first you have this feeling, or I have this feeling of, yes, that's what we do when we rise. We pick everybody up. Black women are so selfless that when we rise, everybody gets to rise. But then there's also this feeling of like resentment that I feel, because it's like, us speaking up, why do we always have to be the ones to speak up? Because when we speak up about the things that we deserve as women or as single moms, then it's like, oh, you're now the face. Or when we start the Me Too movement, that was not even about exactly what it is about right now. It's like we started the Me Too movement about, rights for women of color, like protection for women of color. And then white women sort of took it over, and it became this other thing, which is still good, but it's kind of like, did you guys like, why do we always have to be the ones? But I don't know. It's a catch-22, because we're not going to complain about having to be the ones, but we can. But it helps us. But then everybody else kind of steals our shot. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to reckon with, because definitely I think for all Black women, there's this feeling of like, oh gosh, we got to do the work again. But hopefully what helps in the future is that, white people, and also included in that, people of color who are white presenting,
Mm-hmm.
understand the privilege of not having to be the leadership on that, but also uphold us and support us.
Right.
And that if we say that this is an issue, that we are believed more and that we get the support that we need in the future, because that's really what's going to push all of these efforts, the activism that's going on right now further in society.
Right.
If they're like, oh, that it's not just, oh, well, Black woman said it, so I don't know if it's true yet because it didn't happen to me.
Right.
But thinking of us as being representative of the invisible society and being like, oh, if it happened to them, it could happen to me. And we should be concerned.
Yes. And standing behind us on that.
Yeah.
That's such a good quote. Such a good quote. And we are so blessed to still have Angela Davis. So
yes,
figure out what she's doing. Follow her social medias. She did an interview the other day that I watched, and it was just great. So.
I know before this quarantine happened, she was having a talk, I think, in downtown LA, and I was so bummed because the tickets sold out and I couldn't go. I was like, man, I want to go hear her speak. But yeah, I mean, we're certainly grateful to still have her alive and well.
We are. Okay, so now is the time for some random questions, Saudia. And I love random questions because it gives you listeners a chance to get to know you a little bit more, and they're just fun, right? You founded, wrote, and performed in an all-Black sketch group all over the U.S. and Canada. I'll never forget when you came to Dallas and I had to work or something and I couldn't make your show. And it was called SCC, Slow Children Crossing. And what's your favorite sketch show of all time?
Okay. Well, to clarify, I was the founding member. Technically, my husband, Brett, founded it. He was the one who originally put the posting on Craigslist about wanting to do an all-Black sketch group. So essentially, I met my husband through Craigslist. Craigslist is awesome. But okay, my favorite sketch, I would say my favorite sketch is the one me and Brett wrote together.
What?
And it's called For Sale. And it actually might be up on YouTube if you search it.
What's your YouTube channel?
Well, we had two. We had Slow Children Crossing, Slow Children Xing. And then when the group got smaller and it was just three of us, then we did SEC Comedy.
Okay.
But it might actually be on the old one, because that's where we put a lot of our live content on when we did, when we were doing on stage. And the SEC Comedy one was when we were exclusively doing YouTube. But yeah, the sketch is called For Sale. And the premise of it is that this interracial couple is they're touring a house, an old house, and it turns out to have slaves that come with it. And so
that are alive?
Yeah. And so there's the struggle of, are they going to buy this house because it has slaves in it? And the turn of it, I don't know if I should give it away, but fuck it, I'll give it away. But the turn of it is that it's the interracial couple. It's a Black woman and a white guy. And the turn of it is that the Black woman actually wants, she thinks that, oh, this might be a good thing. And the white guy is like, oh, no, this is bad. He's trying to really hold on to being good. In the end, he gives in. He's like, yeah, sure. I mean, this is great. Slaves. we can get lemonade on. So it's,
you know what? At the end, she stays. It's not a trick. She's not like, aha, I got you. I knew you were gonna like slaves.
No. They're like, oh, this is cool. This is awesome. Oh. And I think what I loved about the sketch is when we originally wrote it, when me and Brett were talking about it, we were like, okay, the original idea was what can we put in this house that would be so offensive and scary? And so at first it was like, oh, what if it's just ghosts? And then I thought about it and I was like, no, what if it's slaves? And he was like, oh. So what happened in the sketch, it was actually really good because it brought a lot of conversation after the show.
Yeah.
Because it shocked people so much. everybody took something different away from it.
Mm.
It made people laugh at the same time. It also made people very uncomfortable and really make them think about just social structures in society, like,
Yes.
having, even just like going to a restaurant and how you're served, like making you think about if you go to a restaurant and your server is Black, like, do you treat them better than you would a white server?
Mm.
As a Black person, how would it feel like to how does it feel being faced with your history like that?
Right.
When we did it, we always did it last in the show. And
Yes.
so people always wanted to know, like, what was it supposed to mean? And our answer was like, well, what do you think it means?
Right. What does it mean to
Because
you?
it was supposed to be shocking. It was supposed
Yeah.
to make you think. So it was more of like, what do you take away from it? The idea for me, thinking about it and writing it, was like the fact that she married a white guy, that she somehow attached herself to the proximity of whiteness.
Mm.
So it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, this is cool because, like, it didn't happen to me. It's not my family. Like,
Yeah.
I'm cool with it. It was just something years ago. And so she had sort of detached herself from her Blackness and attached herself to a little bit of like being the proximity to whiteness. And I think also the other interesting thing about the sketch was that as the white guy, it was kind of like, how far are you going to go to fight for justice?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
the whole sketch he spent like being like, this is wrong, oh no, oh no, oh no. And then it was like one little thing, and then he was like, oh, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
So it was I think it's actually a really good representation of what's going on right now in society, of like, with George Floyd getting murdered and us seeing, all of our white friends being like, what can we do? How can we help? And it's like, as Black
Yeah.
people, we're like,
Yeah.
we're watching. How long is it before you forget about this? How long? There's like a little test there, like,
Yeah.
oh, you forgot about it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there's also that component of the sketch that I find really interesting.
You know what? You just made me think about a conversation that I saw another comedian post. And it's like, as Black people, we think about our safety, our rights every single day. It's always something that we're sharing amongst each other that reminds us daily. But as a, like, if a white person's coming to you and saying, is it okay for me to go back to posting my funny videos, or me like dancing in my bikini, or like, how do you, like, I had one comedian basically say, this is not the time. This was like 2 weeks after George Floyd's death, or his murder. It's not the time to be posting your funny content right now. It's not the time to go back to talking about dating right now. And I was like, when is the right time to do that? I think we have to constantly find a balance between keeping the conversation going, but does that mean we stop creating or going back to what our brand is because this is happening? Like, what would you say?
I would say that, like you said, I agree, it's a balance.
Mm.
And I've had friends that have, I've talked to, and they're like, I'm so angry, and like I feel like I'm like trying to fight and get to people every day, and like I see all their posts, is about what's happening. And I think for me, the concern is, I don't want people to burn out.
Yeah.
Black people, there've been, for us, there has been a level of anger, I think, that has been simmering inside of us for years, for our life.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like some white people are trying to take that on right away. And it's like, great, but you can't take on all that anger in 3 months, because guess what? You're not used to it. You're going to be exhausted.
Yeah.
Like, pace yourself. Go ahead and post, a couple of days, some pictures of puppies, and you outside enjoying life with your mask, or going on a bicycle ride, or whatever. But it doesn't mean you can't at the same time still act for, for social justice and still be out there doing other things that are necessary and required. Like, just because you're not posting about it doesn't mean you're not reading a book and learning about, history that wasn't taught in schools. It doesn't mean that you're not having meaningful conversations. It doesn't mean that you're not donating. It doesn't mean that, being on social media is not the end all and be all of activism. And I feel like treat it like that, then it becomes more performative, because it's more about showing other people what you're doing instead of actually doing the work, because maybe your work is learning, educating yourself a little bit more, so that when your racist friends or your racist relatives talk to you, that you can check them and actually have stats and history and all of that readily available, so that you don't feel like you're just sitting there listening to all this crazy rhetoric.
Exactly. So I agree with that 100%. Like, I didn't want to post content either for a few days, and there were days where I didn't, but then I got messages not only from white people, from Black people, being like, I'm laughing and this is getting me through.
Yeah.
So it was like, wow, I have to keep doing this, because if one person is able to just laugh, even if it's laughing at our pain, it is worth it,
Yeah, we still need that light in the world. Like, now that we've seen, people have been awakened and seen this darkness, this murder that happened. And it's okay to wake up from that, but also, it doesn't mean you can't be happy. It doesn't mean that you can't experience joy. Like, those two can exist together. They should exist.
Yes.
Together.
Speaking of like kind of being frustrated, what do you do when you have writer's block?
Don't write.
Okay. What do you do then?
It's interesting because I definitely go through it a lot, and I'm gearing myself up now to finish a draft of a pilot I wrote. And I would say, what do I do? Sometimes I just have to walk away and give it a rest and explore something else creative, or write about something completely opposite of what I told myself I was going to write about. And it's interesting, that happened to me a couple years ago when I started writing this pilot that actually came from a sketch we did. And I like took a class for it, and I wrote all the beats and the breakdown, and I was really excited. And then I started writing the pilot, and I got about 15 pages in, and then life happened. I got pregnant, got a house, had a kid. And then I would say about a year after I had her, I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to that pilot. It's such a good idea. I'm going to write it. And I tried to write it, and it just wasn't happening. Like, the idea wasn't resonating with me as much as it was before. And I was like, I kind of beat myself up about it for a long time. Like, I was like, why can I'm not a good writer? Why is it not happening? And the moment I was like, you know what? That one's not happening. I just need to scratch it for now and move on to something else. And I decided to like write a short instead. And that kind of led me, it actually boosted me again. Like, I was like, oh, this is like a short, quick idea. And then it actually allowed me to explore different ideas and then move on to something that actually did resonate with me at that time. So for me, the strategy is more of, if you're having writer's block, just stop writing for a while. Like, I know some people are like, push through it and get it done. And I respect that as well. But for me, I just feel like I just write worse, because I like what I'm writing, because it's not, I'm not feeling it the same way. And I know it can be, it's a practice, but also for me, there's more love into it. And I need to really be in love with the ideas I'm writing. And so if I hit a wall, then I'm like, I just need to take a break until I find that inspiration again. I think a really good way, which oddly enough involves writing, is a book that really helped me is called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
Okay.
and you have to write morning pages when you do it. But here's the thing, they don't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be a story. You're just
Okay.
literally free writing. And that's part of it. But also the part of it is that you take yourself on artist dates.
What is
So
that?
yeah, so basically, if there's something you've been wanting to do or something that kind of inspires you, then you make a time and a place to take yourself to a date on it, whether
Yeah.
it's, it's harder now going in quarantine, whether it's going to a museum and all of the dates have to be by yourself. So
Yes.
whether it's going to a concert, whether it's going to the museum, whether it's self-care, taking a yoga class, all of it is really trying to pull out the artist in you. And I feel like that those artist dates are a really good way to get back in touch with your creativity and really inspire you. So that book has been really useful for me. I haven't done it in a while. I did it for the first time about a year ago,
Mm.
and it really helped and brought a lot of clarity into how I viewed my creativity. And even after it, that was when I decided, I was like, all right, I'm going to go to a hotel room and I'm going to write a pilot in a weekend. And I did it. But yeah, it's really great. The artist dates are really great. The free writing is really great. I highly recommend that book.
The artist dates is really, really good too, because I would actually say the same for comedy. Like if you're stuck on go out and do something, and that can kind of inspire you to write jokes or whatever the case is. So I think that's really great advice that I had never thought about. I try to go to the park. I call myself going to the park to write and stuff like that, but I'm on social media and I'm like people watching, but all that stuff helps.
Yeah. And I think the people watching, even as a comedian, is helpful because you're just sitting there taking in how people do things,
Yeah.
and just kind of being focused in that sense outside of yourself is really helpful as well.
Yes. Okay, y'all. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to tackle the very serious subject of sweet potato pie versus pumpkin. And we're also going to talk about some trending topics that are so good actually right now. So let's take a break and we'll be right back. Hey y'all, welcome back to Colored Couch Conversations. I'm your host Jazmyn W, and I'm here with my cousin, actress, writer, Saudia Rashed. And I have a very important question for you, Saudia. This is inspired by me being on TikTok and doing some funny videos. Which is better, pumpkin pie or sweet potato pie? And what's the difference to you?
No question, it is sweet potato pie. I come from a long line of sweet potato pie makers, including myself. And without skipping a beat, the answer is sweet potato pie. I don't know who out there is eating pumpkin pie. White people.
That's what I said. That's what I said.
Yeah, sorry, I can't get down with pumpkin pie, pumpkin lattes. I'm not a pumpkin person. It's not my lane. I'm fine with it not being my lane. Sweet potato pie is my lane, and that's what I like.
Period. I lived in San Francisco for 5 years. And there were times where we didn't go home for holidays. We actually rarely went home for holidays because it's so expensive. Like, why do that when I can wait until January? And I'm not going to lie, I would go to Pete's Coffee because Pete's Coffee has a pumpkin pie. And when I was feeling homesick, I would take a piece of that pumpkin pie and come home, sprinkle some cinnamon, put some whipped cream on it, and really try to close my eyes and pretend. And it never measured up, but it did what it was supposed to do, but it never measured up. So sweet potato pie, 100%.
Yes. Yeah, I just can't do it. I kudos to you even trying. Like, I smell pumpkin and I'm like, it ain't sweet potato. I can't eat it. I can't.
And most pumpkin pie is made with squash, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not even pumpkin most of the time. It's squash.
Ew.
It's really weird. Okay. Well, listen, we're gonna get into some trending topics. I'm excited to talk to you about these because these were trending this week. And the first one is Terry Crews.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, well, he received a lot of backlash over the last 2 weeks over his comments on black supremacy and hashtag we don't want Black Lives Matter to turn into hashtag Black Lives Better. And I just wanted to ask you, does the fear of black supremacy keep you up at night, Saudia?
No, because there is no black supremacy.
What is he talking about?
I don't know. He really confuses me and disappoints me. I'm sure he disappoints a lot of people now, but
Yes.
I felt like that was just a really odd thing to say, and I feel like he's more concerned about how in that statement there seems to be this idea that he's more concerned about what white people think about the movement than listening to the voices of other Black people.
Yes.
And also it also seems like there's this idea of him trying to suppress the idea, like prove we're not angry. And it's like, we're not angry. I mean, we are angry, but we're not angry in that sense. We're just tired of putting on the act that everything is okay.
Yes.
And now it's, the quote unquote mask is off, and we can now tell our truth and, hold people to that and hold people accountable. And that doesn't mean that we're fighting for Black lives to be better than any other life. That's still a fight for equality. It's just
Right.
that we are not going to pretend everything is okay and continue the status quo like we have done.
Right.
But I feel like there's just, for some reason, he doesn't understand that or doesn't want to understand that. He made this other comment a couple weeks ago about Black Hollywood upholding Black standards or like Blackness. And I thought that was really odd too. And it felt for him very personal, like maybe someone told him he wasn't Black enough or something.
Yes.
And I was like, that's you need to go to therapy for that. Like maybe you need to do some investigating about why you feel like you're not Black enough,
100%. I feel like he does need to figure out what's going on inside his brain and within himself, because if he doesn't realize, first of all, Black Lives Better and Black supremacy, what are you talking about? Do you understand the world that we live in was constructed, built on white men's point of view? And do you know what it would take for us to be Black supreme in the US? And what does that mean if for other countries that are predominantly Black? Does that mean that if you live in Nigeria, you live in Africa, you live in the Caribbean, it's a Black supremacy? No. It's just because Black people have, built their governments and built their economies and everything, Black people can thrive there. They can. That doesn't mean that we're better, and we want equality here because we were brought here. I don't understand. I'm so confused.
It's that whole statement. It's real confusing, and it's like, how much history do you know? How do you? It's interesting because in that statement, it's kind of like, well, I don't think you quite understand Black Lives Matter.
Right.
Like you say you do. I don't think you really understand what this is about. And if you don't understand that, then maybe you need to educate yourself a little bit more before you speak out on this.
Right. Now, I had another question for you. You're in Hollywood. You've been acting. You've been on sets. Does somebody have their hand up his ass and controlling his thoughts or something like that? Is this a possibility? I'm like, is this the machine controlling him?
You know what? I don't necessarily think it's the machine controlling him. I think it's him trying to protect himself and other himself.
Yes.
Because otherwise, why would you put yourself out there like that to speak on the behalf of Black supremacy or whatever. It just, and also there are so many other people, Black people in Hollywood that, put themselves out there politically
Mm-hmm.
and are very honest with their views. And it doesn't impact, as far as I know yet, I'm sure there's been some impact behind the scenes, but
Yeah.
outwardly it hasn't stopped them from speaking out about it.
Yeah.
So I feel like for him, it's more personal. It feels like this idea that he wants to be a part of a club that he doesn't feel like he's a part of.
Mm.
And so he has to make that club seem bad.
I actually agree with what you said, but maybe it's also wanting to be a part of that club of or remain a member of the Terry, but Terry's cool. Terry's
Yeah.
cool. He's not like Terry knows what's up because he sees both sides, sort
Right.
of thing. You know what I mean? Just remain that what we sometimes call token Black dude in certain circles or something like that, to where he's, level headed. He sees both sides. He's not playing one side or the other. He doesn't believe X, Y, and Z. So it's a way for him to remain other, as you
Yes.
said.
No, totally.
Hmm.
Totally.
Okay. Well, the next trending topic we had was trending on Twitter all day yesterday, and even today it's still like top 5, and it's Jada and Will. Jada Pinkett and Will Smith were trending yesterday because August Alsina, he has a new album out, and he did an interview with Angela Yee and basically said that Will gave him the okay to be with Jada as they transitioned from a marriage to a life partnership that did not include intimacy. Do you ever see yourself transitioning from a marriage to a life partnership with your husband?
Uh no. But what's interesting is that I don't even know, and I know Will and Jada have talked about that a lot, but there's still some vagueness around that. So for me, it's I feel like we're kind of forced to figure out what that means, because I don't know really what it means for them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's in between a marriage and in between an open marriage. Like, I don't feel like they're just saying the marriage is open,
Yeah.
but perhaps they're saying that, if we decide we don't love each other in a romantic sexual sense, but we still value each other as human beings and we see the value in our family unit, then
Mm-hmm.
we're going to keep that together.
Yeah.
So ugh, I don't really see myself or my husband doing that, but I wouldn't, I guess I can't say no completely if that's what they mean by it.
Yeah.
If it's just oh, you know what, I think we, sure, have sex with someone else whenever we want, like, hell to the no.
Yeah.
Like, I'm too jealous for that. He's too jealous
Same.
for that. And that would never happen in a million years. Like, if you want
Mm-hmm.
to, have that relationship, well, then we're done. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like my eyes widened when I heard that one. I was like, also, it was like, man, you out there really telling their business.
And you know what? I was on Instagram Live yesterday, and some people had some opinions, and a lot of people said it was wrong for him to speak up. Like, it was wrong. What, do they not have like an NDA? Do they not have a confidentiality? Like, why is he saying this? And I said, I'm a sensitive person, as a sensitive person, which it seems to me like August Alsina is probably a sensitive person. He probably is hurt. He probably had a lot of growth because of how hurt he was from the situation. Because it sounded like, I mean, they were hanging out for years. It wasn't just a fling kind of thing. They hung out for at least 4 or 5 years. So it sounded like he was really invested and he was hurt, and it was his experience as well. So he said something about it because he was asked. And while I do not, if it was me, I wouldn't have said anything. But I can't blame the man for speaking whatever he wants to speak on because that's his experience.
That's true. That is his experience, and he can speak on that. It's
I,
just so odd because I mean he's a lot younger than her. He's closer
Yeah.
to the age of her kids. And I
Yes.
think when I heard it first, my first instinct was like, if this is true, do her kids know? Did he consider that her kids would hear this? How would it impact them? I mean, I know they're semi, pretty much adults at this point, but still, I think that was my
Yeah.
first consideration. Like, if their kids were older and he said this, then it's like, great, that's you, everybody's consenting adults, whatever. But I just felt like, although it is his truth, it just felt a little harsh to put that out there, knowing the age of her.
But her kids are grown, Saudia. They're grown. They're 21, 22, 20.
I still see that as babies. Like, I don't know. I just still see that. Okay, they are of drinking age, but I just still see them as, babies.
That's because we grew up with them. But I could see me feeling differently if the kids were in school. When you're in elementary, middle school, high school, you, I, kids go through a lot enough already.
Right.
But to know that your parents have an open marriage and stuff, it's just too much. But they're out of school, girl. They're grown. And I did some Googling yesterday because I'm nosy, and I saw
What you
August
find out, girl?
August was on the beach with Jada Pinkett, and Willow was there. They're all taking pics. Come on. How did she not know?
That's a good point.
Willow is a very intelligent young woman. She know what's up.
It just it's like I'm deeply intrigued by the whole situation, but also a part of me cringes at the same time. That it's like,
Yeah, I know.
so weird.
I
But I do
know.
hope they talk about it on Red Table Talks. I really, really hope that that they are forced to talk about it, because it's like it just brings up so many rumors about them.
Yeah. And I want them to talk about it too, not just because it's juicy, but because I do think that I personally couldn't do the open marriage thing, but I do know people who are more open to that. It just gets the conversation going about moving away from traditional relationships. And I think it's a conversation people need to have, because it's too many people out here cheating and doing what else when that might be an option for them. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
Okay, well, y'all, let's take a quick break, and we come back, we're going to step into the Keep It Real corner with some advice on how to win a man back. It might be a trick question.
Maybe.
Welcome back to Colored Couch Conversations. We are now in the Keep It Real corner, and I have a question from Instagram for you, Saudia. And just, give some real advice. How do you win a man back? That was a question somebody wanted advice on.
Answer: you don't.
Thank you.
If he wants to be gone, then you should probably let him go, because there's probably a reason you haven't figured out yet as to why he's not worth it in the first place. Because honestly, I think I'm old school in that sense of, I feel like I should be chased. I don't feel like I should be chasing down a man and trying to fight for his love. The times in the past, now I will admit I have done that a few times as my younger self.
Same, yeah.
And it never worked out. It never worked out. And honestly, every time after the fact, I would think, oh yeah, that guy was trash. Like, why didn't I even try? Like,
Facts.
it's not even worth my time. So really the answer is don't. Move on.
That's exactly what I said. How do you, and this is a real question, how do you win a man back? I'm like, honey, if he's gone, you've already won. Like, how do you win somebody back? And to not be completely biased here, if you lost somebody, then you might be trash. So good for them for leaving you. You're not going to, no, just move on. Figure out what the lesson was. Pack your stuff and move on.
Yeah. Learn that lesson with somebody else. Fix yourself. Work on yourself.
Work on
You can-
yourself.
Yep.
Ooh, that's such good advice. All right. Well, listen, if y'all probably not going to listen, but that was good advice. Well, Saudia, tell us what you have coming up. What are you working on right now? How can we keep up with you? Everything.
Well, right now I'm just working on, I've just finished season 1 of the podcast. It was a small season. And so now I'm interviewing people for season 2. That's what I'm doing. And just getting back to writing. I am in the next couple of weeks going to start, I'm even scared to say it out loud. I've been milling around this idea of doing a solo show. You know this because we went to see a solo show together.
Yes.
So I've been milling around that idea, and it's become a little bit more firm in my head of what I want to accomplish. So that will be one of my goals for the rest of the year, to start writing that. So really writing the podcast. I did a fun sizzle reel actually earlier this week with some friends. It was very safe. Everybody was very safe. Just in case anybody's worried about me, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Some friends of mine, they're presenting to a couple of networks this great idea of a children's show for learning in quarantine, because there are a lot of kids, mainly kids of color, who are out of school, that are kindergartners and first graders and some preschoolers, and they're falling behind because they're not getting the support they need, whether it's that they're not getting the time or they don't have Wi-Fi or what have you. So yeah, we shot this really cute idea called Galaxy School, and it's just about trying to teach kids, and hopefully something happens with that. It was really fun. I was a teacher with a puppet. So yeah, I that was a project I've been working on, and just my own things. And as far as keeping up with me, I'm on Instagram. You can find me at Saudia Rashed. You can subscribe to my podcast, like Jazmyn said. You can friend me on Facebook. Send me a message first so you found me here, because I don't friend everybody.
No randoms.
Or you can just follow on I have a website, saudiarashed.com. You can go there and find out more about me. Twitter, at Saudia Rashed also. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Now, does your website connect us to all the things?
Yes, the website connects to all the things. So if you go to the website, you can find my podcast, you can find my Instagram, all that stuff for sure.
Perfect. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see the website, her Instagram handle, podcast throughout the show. But if you're not, make sure that you head to saudiarashed.com. Spell it for us, Saudia.
Saudia, last name Rashed.
Perfect. Listen, y'all, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to Colored Couch Conversations on the platform you're listening on right now. And if you love the show, make sure to tell somebody. Do not be selfish, okay? You can follow us on Instagram at Colored Couch Conversations, and watch the show on my YouTube channel. That's comedian Jazmyn W on YouTube, spelled Jazmyn. Thanks to my dad. Thank y'all so much for listening. See you next week.